Welcome back, and today we're going to make a dark cocoa cake. It's one of my favorites. It's an extremely moist cake. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the pan all buttered. Now you can do, this is a 9 by 13, and if you wanted to, you could use two 8 by 8s, round ones or square ones, and then pop them out and make a layered cake. I just like to make it in the pan. I leave it in the pan. It's quite delicious. It might not look fancy, but it tastes really good. First thing you have to do is you need to butter your dishes, whether it's doesn't matter if it's a metal dish, a glass dish, if you have two separate dishes. So this one's 9 by 13, like I said. Making a single batch this time. A lot of times, if you watch my channel, I double things, but I'm just going to make a single batch of this cake. So I take the butter like that, and then I take plastic wrap, and I make sure I get every little area. Like I said, I'm not going to pop it out of this casserole dish, but I don't want it to stick. And then I take a little bit of flour. Okay, so I got the flour in the dish, and then I'm just going to go like this. See if you can see, it's hard to get the right angle here. I get the flour everywhere. And then I have a tool that I use. I have like this little silicone brush, and I brush this all along where the butter is, and this really makes it a lot easier. I have it at a funny angle because I'm trying to show you on the camera here. And I'm just brushing this along all the edges. So these silicone brushes work great for this. We're going to start with the dry ingredients first. In this recipe, all the dry ingredients go into one bowl to start, and then all the liquid goes into another bowl, so it makes it easy. So we have 2 cups of sugar. And when measuring sugar, you want to always level it off. So I have this, and then I'm using the back of a butter knife, or you can use a spatula if you have something flat. So we have 1, 2, and then the next thing is the flour is going into here as well. My spoon apparently left the spoon in there. And then we need 1 3/4 cup flour, and flour gets measured just like white sugar, where we level it off. So 1 3/4 cup. There's a 3/4. And then the next ingredient, set that aside. The next ingredient is 3/4 cup cocoa, and I'm going with the dark cocoa. And the best thing to do is find your 3/4 cup. That's the first thing to do. There it is. Okay. Lost it for a second. Okay, so 3/4 cup of cocoa, the dark cocoa, and I'm just going to use a spoon because I can't get my measuring cup into the cocoa. So I'm just going to spoon it in really carefully. And I'm just going to kind of use the spoon to kind of pat it down a little. I'm not packing it, I'm just kind of trying to level it off. Not packing it hard. If I had a huge thing of cocoa, I would do it just like I did the flour. I'm just kind of trying to make sure that I get this measurement as close as I possibly can. Okay. I think I need just a tad more. Okay, so I'll put that in. So I got that, set that aside. Then the next ingredient is 1½ teaspoons of baking powder. So I already have my 1.5 teaspoons out. It's always a good idea to just lay out look at your recipe, lay out all the little measuring devices you need to do the recipe. So I need 1.5 teaspoons. So I already have those set aside. So 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And then with this recipe, I need also baking soda. Again, the same measurement, 1.5. When you're doing, you also want to, I didn't mention it, when baking powder, you have to level it off as well. And then baking soda, same thing. Have it, oh, here we go. Now you can see what I'm doing. So that's 1. That's 1/2. Put that in there. And then we need a teaspoon of salt. Just noticing there was some left behind. A teaspoon of salt. I don't like stuff very salty, so I'm gonna do a little less than a teaspoon of salt. I need enough to make everything work, but I'm just doing a tad less than the whole teaspoon of salt because I don't like stuff tasting salty. So for that, that is it for the dry ingredients. So I'm gonna take a fork and I'm going to go ahead and stir this up with a fork, kind of pre-stir it before we get to the mixer. Oh, by the way, I have my oven set at 350 degrees preheating, and it beeped already, so it has gotten there. You never want to go ahead and put food into an oven that is preheating because it will burn whatever you're baking. So you always want to do it ahead of time, and once it's ready, then you can put your food in. That's including even frozen pizzas and things like that. So whatever you're baking, it's not a good idea to do it while it's heating up. Okay, so now we're on to the wet ingredients. So we have, let's see, I'm reading ahead. So we have 2 eggs. I'm going to break the eggs in a separate bowl because I always do that, just in case there's a problem with the eggs. So 1, 2. If you have any shells, you can use the shell of the egg to fish out the shells because that usually works pretty well. Okay, got them, got both pieces. Okay, so I'm going to go wash my hands with soap and water, and I'll be right back. Next thing is 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I always like to measure my extracts into my eggs. We got 1, 2, and then I'm going to slightly beat the eggs. I use the fork from the dry ingredients. I'm going to beat these eggs here. And I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm going to jump ahead. So this particular recipe calls for 1 cup of boiling water. So in the meantime, I'm going to get a pan out. I'm going to I measured out the water with a liquid measuring cup right to the 1 cup line. Put it in here. I'm going to go get that boiling, and I'll be right back. Okay, so my water's boiling. I have to kind of listen for it. We don't want to overboil it and then have it evaporate out. Okay, so we're going to put all the liquid ingredients into this bowl. So we have the 2 eggs plus the vanilla. And then we have 1 cup of milk. And you have to use a liquid measuring cup when you're doing milk. And I like to go ahead and get to the level down here when I do that and look across and make sure I got the right amount. Okay, so I'm gonna add that, and then 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, and then you're supposed to also use, when doing vegetable oil, use a liquid measure. So I'm going to go to the 1/2 cup mark. And I'm also going to get level with the oil. And I'm personally using sunflower oil. You can use any, well, olive oil has a little bit of a taste to it, but I think it would still be good. So, but I'm using sunflower oil, corn oil, canola oil, any of those would be fine. Okay. I'm gonna pour this in. Okay, with oil it tends to stick, so I'm just going to scrape measuring cup. So now we have pretty much everything except the boiling water. So we're going to combine the dry ingredients, then we're adding the liquid ingredients. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take it over the mixer. So right now I'm doing this, and I'm going to go grab my boiling water, take this over to the mixer, mix this first, and then I'm going to add the boiling water. I'll tell you the type of attachment you'll need. So you don't want this. That's like for egg whites and really light stuff. You don't want the dough hook like you use for bread or cookies. So you want this one, if that you have that as a choice. If you have it between a wisp and just regular mixing blades, you use the regular mixing blades. So you don't want to use the wisp. That's the important part. And I'm going to go ahead and start mixing this up. I'm going to add my boiling water. It's steaming. Okay, I'm going to check the sides to make sure that we have nothing stuck. So by adding the boiling water, I think the whole idea is it's like you're making pudding. So it gives it that very moist taste. Okay, let's scraping the sides. And I'm going to mix it a little bit more. We're almost there. Okay, let's see where we're at on this. I think we're actually ready. I'm going to just stir it up a little bit with the rubber spatula so I can make sure that the consistency is correct. So we're not sticking. It looks like a good consistency. And I'm going to go grab my casserole dish. Okay, so now this just pours out really easy. So yes, it will be correct. When it looks all watery like this and you ask yourself, oh, did I do that right? You did it right. I'm supposed to bake this for 30 to 35 minutes. So I'm going to check it in like 25 minutes just to make sure, in case my oven happens to be cooking fast or something. So I'm just going to pop this in the middle of the oven, and then we will check on it partially way through and see how it's doing. See you soon. Okay, let's check the cake now. It smells delicious. It smells like maybe it's done. Let's see. Okay. It's not wiggling around, so that's a good sign. And I'm going to go ahead, see if I can do this one-handed. Whoa, there goes my camera. Okay, so I'm going to take a toothpick and stick it in here and see if it comes out clean. It's a very moist case. Oh yes, it is done. It came out clean. Now, if you don't have a toothpick, a fork will work also. I like a toothpick because it's smaller and the hole will be less big. So, stay out of the oven really. Okay, I'm going to move this back, and that is going to cool down for a while before I can frost it. And like I had said previously, so I am going to actually just simply frost it, and I'm going to let this cool off completely. I'm going to make some frosting. I'll show you that. And I'm going to leave it in the pan and serve it out of the pan. Now, if you want to, you can take it out of the pan when it's 100% cool. If you had smaller pans, you could make a layered cake. You could do whatever you want. I make cakes that taste delicious. They don't always look wonderful, but they taste wonderful. My kids have actually both mastered the ability to bake them and make them look wonderful and frost them. But I just like to put them in the pan, frost them, serve them, and enjoy the taste. So I will be back in a little while and we will make the frosting after this cake completely cools down. We are going to start with measuring out. So I need 8, I'm going to do a double batch. So if I was going to do a single batch, I would do 4 ounces of cream cheese. So I'm going to do a double batch because I want leftover frosting, even though I made a single cake, because certain members of my family like to take the piece of cake and then add some extra frosting, or maybe we want to mix the frosting with ice cream. We always just like to have extra frosting. So I will take an entire 8-ounce cream cheese and put it in here. That in there, and then we're going to take the next thing is we need 1 stick of butter, but for a double we need 2 sticks of butter, and 2 sticks of butter just in case your butter is different in a different country. I don't know how they do it. So on the tablespoons, it's 8 tablespoons. So 1 stick is 8, so 2 is 16 tablespoons of butter. What I like to do, because the butter's not completely softened, is I'm going to take a knife and I'm going to cut it up somewhat, because it's a little bit softened, but not that soft. I'll do the same thing with the next one. And then I'm going to wash my hands because I've got butter all over my hands. Oops, it's falling apart. Okay, I'm going to go wash it. Now I'm going to measure my powdered sugar. And typically when I'm measuring dry ingredients, I use dry measuring cups, which would be like this. But when I'm doing a large amount of powdered sugar for frosting, which is a little bit more forgiving than if you're baking something in the oven, because I need so much, I'm just going to use a liquid measure, because this liquid measure is very large. And if I was doing a single batch, it would be 3 cups of powdered sugar, but I am doing a double batch, so it's 6 cups. So I'm going to just go ahead and pour in the powdered sugar here. How much I got here already in my container. I know it's not 6 cups for sure. And then I'm just gonna, so that's about 3.5 cups. I could taste the sugar. I just poured it in there and just got like a mouthful of very fine powdered sugar. Okay, so I'm just gonna pour this until I get to about, and like I said, with frosting it's a little bit more forgiving. You don't have to be as exact as you are with when you are going to bake something in the oven, and it's almost like a chemistry project. Okay, so just trying to see what I got here. Okay, so I got the 6 cups, and then the next thing, I'm just going to pour the rest of this into my container for later. The next thing is the cocoa. And if I was making a single batch, I would need 2/3 cup cocoa. So 2/3 plus 2/3 is 1 1/3. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my cocoa in here with the dry stuff. That way when I go over the mixer, I have everything together, make it easier. So I got a cup here, and I'm going to take a spoon and just spoon this out. You don't want to pack cocoa, but also I can't get my measuring device into the bottom of this cocoa. So I'm just going to use a spoon and just do it like this. I don't want to pack it though. That's the important part. So this recipe, there is lots and lots of cocoa in here. I need to open up another one. It smells so good. Just making it is like, yum. Okay, and then I'm just going to dump this in with my powdered sugar. Just make it quicker when I get over to the mixer. And I'm just going to, here's the third. That was the cup. This is the third. Okay. So I got that in there. Set that aside. And now I'm into the liquid stuff. So if I was making a single batch, I'd have 3 tablespoons of milk. I am making a double batch, so I need 6 tablespoons of milk. So I used to have to measure it with the tablespoons, and that was just difficult because you had to keep on counting. So I got one of these. This is called a measuring glass, and it's really cool because it has teaspoons and tablespoons and everything. So here is the line for the 6 tablespoons. All I have to do is just take my milk, keep my eye on that 6 tablespoons, and just pour it in. And just to make things easier, I'm going to also measure my vanilla in here. So a single batch would call for a teaspoon of vanilla. So it's a double batch, so I need 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and I'm just going to put it in here so when I get to the mixer, things will go quick. One, 2. All right, so I'm just going to double check. I always like to double check all my ingredients to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So I have my cream cheese, and I have my butter, and my cocoa, and I have my vanilla, and my milk, my powdered sugar, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to use the same beater that I used to make the cake. I got that all cleaned up. Now, if you have a hand mixer and you don't have a standing mixer, this might take a while. Because you want it, with frosting, you want it super, super, super smooth. So I have the cream cheese and the butter. I'm going to blend this. I unplugged the mixer earlier, apparently. Okay. It's always a good idea to have power on when you're trying to mix something. Gotta adjust this camera. There we go. All right. Okay, so I'm going to scrape the sides a little. I'm just going to show consistency there so far. When you're doing frosting, you need to, once the things get mixed up, you need to run it on high, whatever type of mixer you have, because you want it super smooth. I'm going to run this just a little more this way, and then I'm going to start adding stuff. Okay, this mixer is very loud, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it a little, I'm going to add a little of the milk, and then I'm going to start adding the mixture of powdered sugar and cocoa. So it's going to be too loud to talk, so I'm going to just go ahead and show you. One thing I'm going to add, because you won't be able to hear me, I'm going to, as I'm adding stuff, I'm going to slow it down, and then I'm going to speed it up and slow it down. Okay, I'm going to need to scrape the sides because stuff is starting to just go flying everywhere by ingesting a bunch of cocoa and sugar without even eating. By just inhaling it all. Okay, scrape some of this. And then I'm just going to add the rest. Scrape down the sides so it's sticking. There's some powdered sugar flying, a little bit cocoa flying. Okay, I think we're about there. It seems that we are. All right, I'm gonna go grab the cake and I'll be right back. Okay, so here is the frosting. I'm gonna frost the cake. Okay, so what I like to do, we like a lot of frosting. So it's gonna be thick on here. You can do it however you like. Usually I do just like a couple of these, take a big spoon and just kind of glob it on. And I did stick the cake up to room temperature, and then I stuck it in the fridge for a while because sometimes it actually helps. Now, because this is cream cheese frosting, you will need to refrigerate it after you make it up, for sure. because there's a lot of cream cheese in here. All right, so I'm going to try, I got a new one of these flat things. I'm going to try this first, and then I have my old standby. We'll see which I like better. Maybe I'll do a combination of the two. And I did have to stop the camera earlier because I had an emergency. The emergency was my granddaughter wanted to taste test my frosting, so I needed her input. And based on her licking her spoon over there, she really loves it. So that's good. So I'm just going to smooth this out. And she's a picky eater, so I know it's got to be good. I don't know about using this for the very edges. I think I'm going to go and use the metal. For the big surface area, it seems to be fine. I'm going to add a little bit more frosting. And of course, it might not be a bad idea if you're even doing a single batch. If you're going to do decorating, you might want to go with the double batch of the frosting. Or if you're going to do a double layer and you want a lot of frosting in the middle. Or if you're like my family and just like to have extra frosting lying around to put more on the cake or in your ice cream or whatever you want to do. And I like it straight across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use this tool. Add a little bit more on my corners. It's almost like it's just totally flat across. Now I'm going to serve this cake tomorrow. So I probably will not taste test the cake itself. I know what it tastes like because I made it before. It's very delicious, but I will let you know how this frosting came out. I just like to go straight across like this. So everybody gets a lot of frosting no matter what piece they end up with. And it sounds like somebody might want more frosting. Okay, so I'll just go over this one more time. Make it nice and smooth. Okay, so there it is. Okay, got to taste test the frosting for sure. Very good. Very delicious, very creamy. My granddaughter's in the background, and I will get you some more chocolate frosting. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you subscribe to my channel, thank you very much. And if you don't subscribe, it is free. If you like this content, that'd be great. I'd love to have more people following me. Thank you for watching.